Yes.
Why is this SDG important to you?
Well, I think it's important for me because it's a very important global issue, and it's historically, I think it's an important issue, and it's also personally an important issue, and also research the relation to my research. It's also been important. It's been kind of a red thread in my research all along, although not always at the forefront, because my research concerns more environmental governance more generally. So, but this is an issue which I burn for, like we say in Swedish.
How do you think your research can help reaching the goal number 5?
First and foremost, I think I see gender equality as a democratic and justice issue. Equal participation is really important. So looking into how does participation look in different sectors and in different fields or in environmental governance is really important because only if women and men are equally represented in policy making can it be democratic and properly inclusive. But I think it's also important because since it's not only about representation of women's bodies in these kinds of decision-making situations, but it's also about challenging social norms. So there's a kind of a normative structure around gender, a gendered structure, or you might call it gender regime or patriarchy, which is reflected in different kinds of norms. And this also needs to be understood. And there's also some studies that have showed that gender equality also correlates with environmental agreements. So states that have higher gender equality also sign more environmental agreements.
You're saying that societies with more equality between the genders make better environmental decisions?
Well, not necessarily better, but it's very difficult to make these correlations. I mean, what are the causal factors? It's not always easy to do, but there seems to be some indications that in this direction, so that if you have had more gender equal decisions, you could also have a bit more sustainable decisions.
Is there any of the other SDGs that you find extra important, and how would you say that it connects to the SDG number 5?
Yes, climate action goal, which is number 13, I think, yeah. And this is a goal that's very close to my heart as well. I think it's, of course, a very important issue, and it relates very much to gender equality, but also to equity issues. The effects are extremely unjust, and it's like the most vulnerable people, poor people, that are usually affected by, let's say, climate events like hurricanes or floods, even droughts, and among the poorest are the women. So they are very vulnerable to climate change, but at the same time, they're not the ones that have actually caused it or are producing CO2 emissions. Actually, I received funding together with two colleagues, one from Malmö University, Gunhildur Magnusdotter is her name, and another colleague and scholar from Linköping University, Annica Kronsell. This project then combines, we could say, the gender equality goal and the climate action focus. Because what we do is we take issue with the processes that we've seen particularly in countries like Sweden, because we focus only in Sweden in this particular project. We take issue with the fact that a lot of the focus on mitigation or policy strategies, things that we're doing to combat climate change have been very technically fixed and much less on behavioral or social issues. So the project then studies how do climate policymakers in Swedish agencies that deal with climate, both mitigation and adaptation, how do they take in social issues? How are they concerned about gender equity, gender equality, equity issues? How do they do it actually?
Would you say that gender equality is getting better or worse?
I think in a way it's both. I have to be positive. We have to be positive that it's getting better. And I do the little I can to make it be realized as well.